All right, so Yahoo Finance, U.S. tariff revenue down. U.S. tariff revenue dropped by over 4 billion in March. It's down almost 30% since October. Tariff revenue totaling 22.15 billion came into the U.S. covers coffers in March. Yet another monthly decline after President Trump backtracked on some duties, and the U.S. Supreme Court struck down others as illegal. The new figures from the Treasury Department monthly statement showed a notable downtick from the 26.59 billion collected in February. Their reading is the fifth consecutive monthly decline and marks a nearly 30% drop from last October, when monthly tariff revenue peaked at 31.5 billion. Friday's release also shows that the U.S. ran a budget deficit of 1.169 trillion between October and March, the first 6 months of the fiscal year. These massive deficits, including 164 billion in March alone, also continue to far outstrip tariff revenues, despite frequent claims from the president that his duties are balancing the budget. Uh, so, and on top of that, it's stated here that what I really find interesting about this one is that they collected 30% less, totaling 22.1 billion in March, and the U.S. ran a deficit, which is nothing new. Ran a deficit of 1.1 trillion dollars, and I believe I don't know why I didn't look it up, but one, that's already not looking good. Second, recently, let's see if I can find it. Yeah, there's reports that there's going to be a refund for the tariffs because they were deemed illegal, but they were still collected anyways. So now they have to be issued back. Yeah. So, I don't know if I trust that website. We're gonna ignore that. But again, we've seen this. We saw this coming. We've seen this all before. You've stated it. You don't believe in tariffs. I stated it that I do believe in tariffs, but not this way. And well, I mean, we're both right. We have, as I stated, we have like no competition over here. So all the tariffs are being put are being put onto the American consumer because there's no competition from outside the United States. Um, and on that, tariffs are a form of a trade restriction that generally reduces the efficiency of all other countries simultaneously, and lowers the overall standard of living. Uh, we'll get to that in a second because we do have a inflation report. But not only that, my thing is like with the refunds being implemented, that is already going down, and we're already in a deficit. It's going to go down even further, which affects the general population because we're going to be paying for that because the money's already spent. We're in a deficit. The money's spent, so it's gonna you know it's gonna be put on us, and which will probably surge inflation a bit because the government needs to make more money than it's taking in now to make up for the tariff refunds. And a refund for a tariff effectively functions as a government subsidy. The subsidies cause prices to mistake the relative scarcity of things and the values that users place on them. While a refund may lower the price of a company pays to the government, it does not change the actual cost of production, such as labor, raw materials, transportation, in the slightest. Instead, though, part of those costs are simply shifted to be paid through taxes and government debt. Yeah, that's stated. It's gonna be put on us. Your prices are gonna go up on your stuff. So I mean, as I stated, I'm not anti-tariff. I know you don't like tariffs. I'm not anti-tariff, but just slapping on tariffs with no plan B.
Uh huh.
I mean, I didn't get voted as president, but I'm not 35, and I don't want to be in charge of a bunch of morons. But you know what I mean? Like,
But there's the rub. You either are in charge of the morons, or the morons are in charge of you.
too right. I don't know. I don't know how you combat that then, but and
But
yeah,
yeah,
you
this
go.
this is I agree. This is pretty unsurprising for anyone who's been monitoring the situation, as it were. Yeah, it was pretty obvious that a lot of this stuff was just kind of slammed through in the hopes that like the pushback would die before they could basically say no. And it was if like that was a probably significantly less than 10% chance likelihood of happening because like the power of the purse is with the president. If you want to pass through tariffs, you got to get them through Congress. The president just doesn't get to slap stuff onto the economy and be like, well, it's happening now. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
can't, but then it'll just get ruled illegal like it was now. And they'll have to do this, huge, you have to walk it back, which is a worse position to be in than having never done them in the first place, probably. Um, and it's just a bad look all around, I think. And again, for anyone monitoring the situation, this was a known high likelihood outcome. Um, yeah, that's really about it. It was this most I feel like a lot of people, even people were like yourself who were pro-tariff, saw this coming because it's like the way this was implemented was foolish and perhaps unwise. Similar. This is sort of like the uh, ironically, I guess, similar to a lot of the arguments that was it Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Supreme Court justice, made about the Roe v. Wade ruling, where they're like, oh, doing this through the courts is the wrong way to do this. This should be done legislatively. Um, in a similar fashion, doing this through the executive is the wrong way to do this. This should be done legislatively because if you do it this way, if you do it the wrong way, it's really easy to get it overturned, and then it's really difficult to ever get it unoverturned because now you've permanently poisoned that thing, or you've permanently, made anyone who. Because I don't think you could be an American president for like the next probably 10 or like two to five cycles and say the words tariffs without everyone going, oh, a president
Mm-hmm.
talking about
Yeah.
tariffs again. It's like, great, now everyone wants to talk about this. Same thing with like Doge. I don't think the way Doge went about handling. I have my own opinions about how government inefficiency works and what it looks like, but the way Doge went about it was like, man, it's just now. If you are someone who wants to run on, hey, let's rein in federal spending because it is nuts, or let's try to figure this problem out, whether that's increase revenues, whether that's reduce spending, or change spending to maybe we're not reducing spending, but the money is getting used more efficiently, right? So instead of X many billion dollars just sort of evaporating into thin air, that happens less often, right? So any kind of like budget changes you might want to make in the future, or budget alterations or conversations surrounding government efficiency are now like permanently poisoned because what was the kid's name? Like Big Balls thought it was
Oh
didn't think
yeah.
that the U.S.
Uh-huh.
Forest Service was valuable. And it's like, all right, well, great. Now we've just permanently poisoned this conversation moving forward forever.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not forever, but for at least probably the next few cycles. Um, but yeah, that's a bit. I think the tariff stuff is unsurprising.
Oh yeah, and you stated about future cycles, about for next few presidents, what's called throwing the word tariff out there. It's probably going to be hit with a negative connotation. And I have a note here that like this is Trump's last term. He's going to throw everything he can. That's probably why we got tariffs in the first 6 months, because it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm willing to bet that he did throw the tariff out there to try to like bolster the economy, at least in his mind, the way he thinks it's going to happen.
Hmm.
He thinks it's going to happen, and then bam, it's good. And worst case scenario, it's bad. He's not running for re-election. I don't think he actually cares about the future, future Republican parties or whatever. It was an idea for him. He threw it out there. Dumb. I probably need to be thought through more. Um, So again, he doesn't care. Like politicians have a habit of making decisions now, not caring what happens in the future, because either A, they know people are going to vote for them no matter what, or B, if they're not going to vote for them, it's not their problem anymore.
True.
and what was I so I do have some notes here about the refund itself. It's like let's see. So for every dollar refunded to a company to a company represents an allocation of scarce resources that have alternative uses. In economics, the true cost of a government expenditure is the foregone opportunity. The billions of dollars directed towards tariff refunds could have gone could have been used for other purposes such as reducing national debt, not happening, refunding infrastructure, lowering general tax rates. If the government takes money from one place, aka you all, the taxpayers, the bondholders, and transferred it to other places, such as the companies getting the refund, because you're not getting the refund. I'm not getting the refund. You're not getting the refund. The people listening are not getting the refund. We're not getting any of this, even though we've bought the products that got increased because of tariff. We're not getting the refund. It's the companies. So at the end of the day, they're benefiting because they know that they can charge a higher price, we'll pay for it, and now they get a refund. So yeah, when the money goes from the taxpayers to the companies, that's a loss of purchasing power for the general public, because one, taxes got to go up to pay back the companies. Companies are already received extra money from us because we paid for that. We've shown that we paid for that. It's kind of like, what was it? I don't want to bring video games involved, but it's like the horse armor DLC in Oblivion. We'll pay $2.50. Well, they know we'll pay $2.50 for some armor in a video game for a horse. How much further we can get? Now we have $25 cosmetic skin DLCs in Call of Duty and Battlefield. It's that slippery slope. But as we stated, we saw this coming. We hoped it wasn't coming, but hope only gets you so far when it comes to politicians and stuff like this. But so unless something changes, it's kind of easy to expect that prices are going to go up. Because of taxes, naturally. So prepare for that. All right, and our next one. Okay, so this one is not technically an article. I didn't want to look for the article. It was. You can't see it, but on the screen, it's here. So I'm on X, and I see this post from Greater Post, and it says Gen Z : most boomers don't know what it's like to work 40 plus hours a week and still not be able to afford a home, per Fortune magazine. Now, Fortune magazine is run by old people. I'll give it that. But another account called Power to the People said, "This is the stupidest effing comment I have read in a while." And then it's all caps, "Every generation worked way more than 40 hours a week. That's life. Get used to it." So now, I am a big component of not using cartoons as examples, but it should be noted, I brings up a lot, that The Simpsons, which was created, I believe, in 1989, the concept of one dude working, now granted, he worked in a nuclear factory, dangerous work, for sure, I'll give it that, but one dude working and owning a a two-story home, a garage, a car, a wife, and 3 kids. That was so normal that was the standard for the family home. In 1989, one dude working bought a house. Now, again, nuclear stuff. So I looked into it, and by looked into it, I asked Grok for sure. But I told Grok to, give me sources. And the sources the Grok uses was the SSA, National Average Wage Index, the FRD and Census Medium Home Prices. Let's see, some .org site, and then historical car transaction it got from like CPIU from BLS for inflation. Okay, so now I know you don't like averages, so I asked it for the mean. So I took from now a lot of people don't know this. Boomers stretch from the 40s to the 60s, so theoretically, a boomer is someone who was born right after World War II, and by the time they're about 20, there are, by 20, you're 20, you're in the workforce, you're buying homes, you're still in the 60s, and at that time, still 1960s, boomers, quote unquote, are being born. So, but I started the years off in 1960, 1980, 2000, and 2025. So, 1960, the mean salary was $4,000 a year. Adjusted to today's with today's inflation, that's $43,000 a year. A little less than the mean. The medium home in 1960 was $11,900. Adjusted to today's inflation, is $129,000 for a medium home price. The average new car was $2,200. In today's money, that's $24,000. 1980, $12,000 for median. In today's money, that's $48,000.
Let's pump the brakes real quick, just to do some quick ratios. So you said the average paycheck was around $4,000, which translated to what?
Per year. That's a salary.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, yeah.
So average salary was $4K,
Yeah.
and that translated to
So in today's money, about 10 times as much.
yeah, 40 grand. But I would like everyone to keep an eye on the ratios. All right, so this is your purchasing power parity. You can make literally less money, but if the money goes further, you are proportionally wealthier. So inflation isn't the only thing that affects your purchasing power parity. A ton of things affect your purchasing power parity. If we look at the ratios here, right, a car costs about half of your annual paycheck, and a house costs a little more than 2x. This is what is like 2.5x your annual paycheck. So
Yeah.
that means that on a single paycheck, you could reasonably save so in proportion to today's money. That would look like, now your average home now is like what, $300,000, $400,000.
Oh yeah,
So
actually.
are you
So
looking?
yeah. So we have
But as
2025,
we go through this, keep the
$400,000.
ratios in your mind of, even if we're making more money than we would be adjusted for inflation, the ratios are what matter, right? Your purchasing power parity. If the cost of a loaf of bread was, 50 cents back in 1960, and it's $50 now, or just as an example, or it's $5 now, and that's a 10x price increase, but salaries have only gone up 2x, right? So your median salary now, I think, is like $71,000. Even though, 40 to 71,000, that's roughly 2x, a little bit less than 2x. But the cost of bread has gone from 50 cents to $5. Well, your purchasing power parity is down, even if, you're doing better off than you would be just via inflation, right?
Yeah. So let's check out your bread example. So 50 cents to $5. That's a 10x increase. Now the median salary from 1960 was 4,000. 2025 is 69,000. That's like a almost 20 times increase. However, if we adjust for, inflation, it's not even doubled. It was 43,000 in today's money for 1960 to 2025. 70, like not even $70,000 is the median. People take averages. I know you don't like averages because that includes everything. Yeah. It's the the main stuff without the outliers. That's why we use mean. We haven't even doubled.
Yeah. This is why when you hear people say like the average salary, like, oh, if salary kept track with inflation, we'd be making, $100,000, your average salary would be, 100 grand. Your average salary would be, 150 grand. And you can do the math and you go, well, that isn't true, right? Like, I'm doing the math right now. If your average person was making, effectively $40,000 in 1960, and, that number, they're making 4,000. Oh, that's about 40,000 now. And the average is 70,000. So, maybe they were living a little bit harder. And it's like, yeah, but the purchasing power parity was astronomically higher. Like the
Yeah,
ability, like a house was right. So if we're talking like, if assuming we're just based off of housing prices, if based off of just housing prices, we kept the same purchasing power parity, your average house is $400,000. That needs to be roughly 2 times your annual income, 2.5 times your annual income, which puts your standard annual income at nearly $200,000. What is that, $175,000 if it's 2.5 times? I'm not great at math off the top of my head, but you get the idea. Like your dollars, despite having more of them, will go less far. If you've ever been to like, a great example, Europeans. This was a recent article I read, and I hate giving. As a true red-blooded American, I hate giving Euros their ups. But when I was in Europe, even though the euro was a slightly more valuable currency, right? The exchange rate was like 1 to 1.1 or 1 to like 1.3 or something. At the time I was there, it actually, in a lot of places, depending on where you were, even though the exchange rate was worse for you, you could actually go a little bit farther because that euro could actually had better purchasing power parity. The math works out kind of weirdly, but like you would pay like the equivalent of 20 USD for like a pretty decently nice dinner. Um, Whereas in the States, you might pay $30, right? Even though the exchange rate is worse, because the purchasing power parity of the euro in their markets is a lot better, that dollar goes even further. Um, so the reason I bring that up is like, keep. I want to reiterate this as many times as I can. Keep in mind the raw numbers don't tell you the whole story. Even if we're showing you like, oh, they made a little bit less money than we did. Remember, the ratios are what matter. You can have 100. This is like, you can have $100 million, right? You could have a ton of money, but if a loaf of bread is 100 grand, it doesn't mean anything.
yeah.
Your purchasing power parity is what sort of is decisive of your ability to sort of live a good life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so we'll just we're gonna go with the 1960 example I'm about to give. Okay, so mean salary was 4,000. Median home was, we'll just say 12,000. We'll boost up the number, and new car was 2,000. Okay, you could theoretically live with your parents and split that payment in half. So all of your money, now granted, hopefully your parents would help you out. They'd keep you fed. But half of your paycheck goes to a
You're a
car,
boomer.
half
Your
of you,
parents are definitely helping you out here.
yeah,
And then you're going to say you did it all on your own.
yeah, half of it goes to the car, half of it goes to the house payment. You will pay off that car. Now you're making both payments. You will pay off that car in a year. You will own that house in 3 years. Sorry, no, not 3 years. You will own that house in 6 years.
Mhm.
And that's assuming
And that's
that
assuming,
you don't buy,
yeah,
yeah,
you have,
you buy a new car every year.
yeah, it's,
Just 6 years. Now, granted, there's interest rates, but whatever. Well, that's beside the point.
sure, well, this might not be like a perfect one-to-one example, but like if you were, this is why when they talk about like, you could pay for college, in a summer. It was because even though it was maybe a similar portion of their paycheck, the other parts of their life were so much less expensive. So much housing was so, I cannot iterate to you how dirt cheap housing used to be in the United States. Like, and also we kind of have had slightly different housing conventions back then. There's people kind of settled for a little bit less. There are other things that cause the price of stuff to go up, but like not the, what is it, 500x? Houses have not gotten 500 times better in the past.
Yeah.
It would be from the 60s, 80 years, or 60 years since the 60s. We're in, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not it's not 500 times better. It might be, you know what? I could say the houses might have gotten like, 2 times better, right? There's central heating and air, and it's gotten really good. We don't use asbestos in the wall, so you're not dying of cancer. Although, like, you can make complaints about like construction crews and the quality of like certain parts of construction going up and down. But like broadly, a decent new home is probably twice as good as a home built in the 60s. That just seems to be disregarding like architectural stuff. When I say architectural stuff, I mean like design. The modern house might look more boring, but from a technical perspective, it's probably a 2 times better house. So, I could see a 2x price, not a 500x. And that's at best. Like this is my at best being as maximally generous as I can. When in reality, I really don't think houses are 2x better. I think they're maybe, 0.3x better. That actually doesn't make sense. Like 1.3x or 1.1x. Like I really don't think houses have gotten so much meaningfully better that they demand this huge premium. Well, that really any product has gotten so much better that they demand this massive, enormous markup. And yeah, like as you were saying, like you could have your house paid off, and this is assuming. And you said you're living with your parents, you could have the car paid off. This is assuming you finance the car. If you're working a full-time job and you're living with your parents, you can outright buy the car after working for 6 months. And to be
Mm-hmm.
clear, we're not saying a car, right? Any car, Facebook Marketplace, go talk to some local guy. A brand new, off the lot car, brand new.
Mm-hmm.
Just you can walk into a lot, buy a full brand new car. You know what the average cost of a brand new car is today?
According to this thing, around 50K.
$50,000. You need to work for at least 8 months on the average salary, as
And that's
opposed to
all
6.
going to it.
And it's all going to just the car, let alone a down payment on a house, right? So, and let's do like how do down payments work, right? You put down the principal, and then or you put down a down payment, and then you've got the principal and you've got the interest. You have to pay off as you go. What's a down payment usually on a house? What percent of the house?
So before Bill Clinton, I believe in the 90s said you could do 0% down. I think it was required that you had either 25% or even 33%.
33%. So a house that's 2.5 times, we'll call it 3 times your annual salary. The down payment, right,
Mm-hmm.
was effectively your annual salary. So you live with mom and dad for a year and a half, and you can put a down payment on a house and be driving a brand new car.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm sure that this is possible for some people in some parts of the country. I'm not saying that this whole thing is completely evaporated, but you, even making $70,000 a year, could not in a year put down 100 grand, which is a down payment on a $300,000 house, which is still beneath market average. And this again, and we're assuming, right, that you're doing this in any part of the country, right?
Yeah.
This is the part that should, if you're a younger person, this is the part that should upset you more than any other part of this. You're right. You can make that thing happen in the middle of. Did we swear on this podcast?
Yeah, we can swear.
Okay, in the middle of butt fuck nowhere, South Dakota. You could do it. You could go to somewhere, no man's land, Nebraska. Find a house that's like 200 grand. All right, so now only you need is like it's a third of 200 grand, like $75,000. Is my math way off?
A third of 200 grand.
Either way,
Yeah, you're around right. Yeah.
right around 80
Around.
grand.
Yeah, we'll
That's
say
your
80
yearly
grand.
salary, right? You could buy the, I would say the cheap Kias, but Kias have gotten expensive. The cheapest, like you could get a Kia Soul new off the lot. Actually, I kind of want to Google this right now to make sure I'm not being insane because I don't know how expensive Kia Souls are.
Oh, yeah, go Google it.
Full
Because
new
you do that. I'm
price.
gonna talk about. So we say that for the 60s. Now let's say a boomer was born in the 60s and they're gonna get into the workforce in the 80s. So they're, what's it called? They're 20 something years old. They're in the workforce. It's practically the same thing, except you're gonna be working about 2 extra years. That's assuming you buy a new car every year.
Mhm.
Did you find the price of that Kia?
Yeah. Yeah. So $20,000 for a new Kia Soul, which is actually a little bit less than I was anticipating. Um, but you can get a Kia Soul, right? All right. You've got your brand new Kia Soul after working for about half a year, little less than. And then to put the down payment on this house, you got to work for another year. Congratulations. You lived out the boomer dream of getting a brand new car, fully paid for. And this is pretending that you didn't have debt in college. And you now own a home. You have permanently, perhaps not permanently, but very seriously capped your lifetime earnings by choosing to live in middle of nowhere, Nebraska. Congratulations. You checked all the boxes, and your reward for that is to be stuck in the low level mediocrity for the rest of your life. Now, the boomer, he didn't have to make this decision. The boomer grew up in Anaheim, California, and could do that same thing in Anaheim, California. She grew up in Brooklyn and could do that same thing in Brooklyn. He grew up in Miami and he could do that in Miami. He grew up in, I don't know any of the boroughs in Chicago, but he lived in Chicago and he could do that in Chicago. Like, this is the, their economic opportunity caps were very different, right? They weren't making this decision of, okay, do I try to live out the American dream of buy a car, uh, you know, buy a brand new car, you know, do all this other stuff. They didn't have to make that trade off of having that or being a brokey, but in a city with a lot of economic opportunity, right? There was no trade off. It was, you could do this just kind of anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that there wasn't some level of price disparity. Obviously, California's a little bit more expensive, New York's a little bit more expensive, Florida, Illinois, right? These Texas were all a little bit more expensive, but like
You're
this
also
was
getting paid
still when
more.
new housing, yeah. But you'd also be getting paid a little bit more, so it kind of also, which is true now, right? You get paid more to live. Like your average salary in New York, I think, was like $140,000, and it's like, in any other part of the country, that's not a terrible income, right? If you're in the middle of like, nowhere Tennessee, that's pretty good. That's pretty solid. But if you're, I don't know, in like a big economic center where everyone wants to be, because there's no new housing, because of a whole litany of other reasons, and purchasing power parity being a lot lower, like you're not, your economic opportunity is either limited by the amount of money you can make, right? So either you are living the dream in a place no one dreams of, or you're in a place people dream of, struggling to make ends meet on what is ostensibly a good salary, because it's so difficult and exclusive to live there when this wasn't as much of a decision that people had to make in the past. Um, but yeah, like it's nuts.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, like, it's not even to the point where we're like, oh, like again, like the comment that really got me was that like every generation worked more than 40 hours. I watched this one. Oh, I'm getting an echo. I watched this one YouTuber called the Minority Mindset, and he always has a break off after the 80s because in the 80s, like as I stated in the beginning of The Simpsons, one person working, you got it done. You could do it. But
Mhm.
then after the
That
80s,
Sorry, I was gonna jump in and add on to
oh,
that.
you good, you
Yeah,
good,
that's
you
the
good.
other part we didn't talk about. When I'm talking about this, I'm talking about single young person who's going out and trying to start life for themselves. They could raise a family on this. Do you know how expensive it is to feed even just 3 people on a single salary? The answer is very. Let alone the average family size was, I think, like 4 or 5 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just so, the abundance was unreal.
Oh
It
yeah.
wasn't like Johnny's struggling, but he has a house and a car, and maybe finally he can start his life. This was like, um, it was Ted and Llewellyn who now had their 2 kids, Roger and Sherry, in Bakersfield, California, and that was just everyone there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then yeah, single dude by yourself doing that. But then in Minority Mindset, after the '80s or it might be around 2000s, he makes the point where it's like the income has like both of you have to be working, and I believe he
Hmm.
stated that in 2020, no, this is like 2023, 2024. It's gotten worse for sure, but he stated that combined, you both have to be bringing home to. Again, he uses averages, so we'll forgive him for that. But the average you both are bringing in total has to be at least $120,000 to afford the average home,
Hmm.
which the mean salary is 70,000. That's fair, but I even think that's a little, in my opinion, that's a little high. For example, I make three times the
They don't.
minimum wage in my state. I don't even think I'm hitting that.
Hmm. Well, on top of that, like this is one of those statistics where it's like you're this is of the only people who are being pulled are the ones working. If we weighted it against all the unemployed people, or the people like what it, your U3 unemployment, which is people who are currently actively seeking employment, and blah 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 blah. Like what is it? U6 is like the broadest. Um, like if we used even just if we included even just U3 unemployment in this number, it's like I guarantee you would watch it go way down. And then if you probably broke it out by generations, you'd probably see the most. You probably see a lot more. You probably do still see a ton of wealth disparity, obviously, between generations, with the boomers being the wealthiest generation and Gen X or Gen Z being the poorest. Sans Gen Alpha, because I don't think they're old enough to start working in mass. Um, but what you probably also see is this is a speculation, but I would speculate that that Gen Z probably has the highest intra um, generational wealth disparity. Like I would have, I would imagine that the Gen Z who are working were actually probably making a pretty decent like income, and there's also just more of them who aren't working, period. Because
Mm-hmm.
the process to get to that income is a much more gruesome and grueling road um, than it was in the past. And oh yeah, this is another thing. Access is this is something that we might touch on a little bit more later. But just for now, keep in mind, you ever heard that piece of boomer advice? You know, the firm handshake. Just walk in, hand them your resume, tell them you'd like to work there. Give them a
Yeah.
firm handshake. They'll
Mm-hmm.
get you an interview. They give that advice not because they're trying to be mean to you, although I imagine they have a little bit of that sadistic pleasure, um, but because that's what they did. So, to all of the younger people listening to this who are, the 9 rounds of interviews that give you homework and that require, 7 years of experience and a master's and a 4.0 GPA, even though you've been out of college for, 3.5 years, um, and want to see your high school transcripts, and, you have to try to find a way to sneak past the AI agent to finally talk to a person, maybe eventually in a billion years. Those are your barriers to getting a job that doesn't pay proportionally as well, that gives you less access, that requires that you do the additional job of going out to find a partner, which, I mean, for most people is relatively is comparatively a full-time job. Um, like you're working 2 jobs, the find the partner job and the real job. And then your reward for that is to live a life that is vaguely comparable to one that a single guy could have lived 60 years ago.
Yeah.
Because his access to that money, not just was there more money and the money went, or not just was the money more powerful, so it went further. So even though he had less, he had more. But his access to that money, like the Bears' access were so much lower. He wasn't jumping through 1,000 hurdles. And that college degree really did open so many doors. Um, like so many doors. This is why and it's still largely true advice um about if you don't know what you're doing, go get a college degree. This is why they used to say it doesn't matter what. Like, go to college, get a degree. It doesn't matter what degree, because one, it was a little bit more exclusive, and even if it wasn't, it told people something about you, right? Oh, you can put in work, right? You can show up, you can be consistent, you can be a good employee, blah 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 blah. And for a large number of reasons, that heuristic became less strong or less valuable, or companies post 2008 got very used to being able to say, we want years of experience in the industry, because of when the markets go down, you want to hire safer employees, not riskier employees, and college grads are riskier employees, because you have to train them, and that requires investment from the company. So it's easier to just pick someone else from the industry who's already been trained and already kind of knows what they're doing. Point being, they got that college degree, and then unironically, that was a really amazing tool to get them any job anywhere. Maybe not any job, right? You're not walking and becoming like a senior, manager, or like a C-suite
Yeah.
executive instantly. But like, it was great at getting you any entry level job, and you probably got better than entry level pay, because there's just a higher portion of the population. And this is the more insane part, right? We're talking about access. We're talking about how many doors this college degree opened for you. That was because it was, on some level, notable that you went to a college, because however much those jobs are like, master's required, or equivalent graduate degree, with 4.0 GPA from high school onward, blah 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 blah. 7 years of experience in the industry, 9 rounds of interviews, homework that you have to do that takes you 20 hours, paid, but paid at a third of, and then we'll maybe offer you the job, and then we offer you the job, we're going to tell you the salary only then. You have no idea what you're even competing for, right up until the very end, when we basically know that you're hooked, and know that you're basically not choosing anywhere else, so then we can just kind of throw whatever number we want at you. High schooler, 18 years old, fresh out of high school. Prom was 6 weeks ago. Would be handed that job if he walked in the front door and shook someone's hand. Like, this is the disparity in levels of access. I knew this guy. This is a bit of a tangent. I knew this guy when I worked at a gun range. 68. He was like 68. He was a boomer. Maybe very young boomer, but a boomer. And he might have been older than 68. I think he was born in like the 50s, late 50s. So he was growing up in like the 60s and 70s. He rode motorcycles all around California, doing drugs, the classic like boomer Eagles like blaring on the radio experience, right? He ended up working for some like mid-sized business, and like cashed out on his shares in the company. And dude, he had like, I don't know the exact amount of money to throw, but he had a lot of money to throw around. Like, he was doing this as a hobby job. Like, the guns he would come in with, the car he would drive, like, it was just, this guy had cash. Um, and he spent so much of his younger years just goofing off. And then he could
Hmm.
just turn around and get a job. Just whoop. All right, job time now. I'm done. I'm bored. I've had my pre-work siesta. Let's go make some cash. Hey, mister, you want to give me a job that can get me a car, a house, a wife, and kids? Well, sure, buddy. Why not? Boom. Check. Done. And that was it. And there's obviously some problems with the system, the weaker background checks, there's probably more scamming going on. But like, just, you could do that stuff, and then with the UE, and immediately be, he's a respectable businessman, and look at me, I'm Mr. Job Man, and I'm making the money. Oh, what's that? You want to offer me stake? You want to offer me stock in the company? Well, sure. Golly gee, I guess I'll take it. Cash out 60 years later, $6 million richer. Oh, and by the way, you and all your boomer buddies have made the housing market inaccessible. So now your little ranch house is worth $7.8 million, because you got there before everyone else. And he said no one else can build. So now you cashed out on your stocks, you cashed out on that, and you moved to some other part of the country, or you basically trade houses with some boomer on the opposite coast. And you just, oh, this is great. I love my life. And now, to even get a fact, like just a vague facsimile of that, you need a master's degree, a spouse, no children. And that's just any master's degree. You need a master's degree in a decent field, a spouse with a master's degree in a decent field, and then you both manage to navigate all the way through interviews, all those others, get those jobs. And
Keep those
only
jobs.
then keep those jobs. So we're talking 12 years of schooling. So we have the traditional eight, what is it, 12 years of schooling, right? K through 12. And then really now it's basically 18 years of schooling because everyone's trying to get their kids started early. You have your 12 years of schooling plus an additional 4, plus an additional 2 to 4. So we're already at 20 years of school plus, 12 months of job interviews and process and blah, 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 blah. In which time you need to have found a spouse who is also in a comparably paid field to get a job, to then live in Nowheresville, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And you both have to put up money to get a down payment on the house, and you need to either split a car or drive used cars, and there's nothing wrong with any of these things in particular, right? I'm not saying that these are necessarily bad things, right? Except for maybe needing a spouse to pay for stuff. Like if
Yeah.
I think that's a different part. But like, not that women shouldn't work, but if you and your wife are working, you should be living like gods. Okay,
Yeah.
that's my position.
I know that you're paying off college debt. We can't
Mhm.
forget that part.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you're paying off college and master's debt because, oh my gosh, masters aren't cheap. So the hope is that hopefully you can get a job out of college that will pay for that master's. Good luck with that. So then you and your spouse are now both deeply in debt. Maybe, hopefully, just one of you, but probably both of you that you're paying off so you can live in, Nowheresfield, Oklahoma. And David, Hornthau could do it in California on a GED. He could do all of what you're doing, make equivalent pay. He could support his wife and his kids in like Long Beach, California on a GE, in Orange County, California on a GED or military income. Like,
Yeah.
what? It's but moving on to the 80s.
I mean, for the 80s, it's essentially the same thing. Now, wages went up 3 times. This is like from 60s to the 80s. Went up 3 times. The housing went up slightly more than 3 times. Cars went up slightly less than 3 times. No, no, no. It was about 3 times. So between the 60s and 80s, right when the final boomers are entering the market, it's prices are still relatively the same. You know what I mean? Now, granted, I think as I stated earlier, let's say you did the whole living with your parents for what's called for a year, and
Yeah,
like
year and a half.
you split your payments. You would have that car paid off in a year, and then you would have that home paid off in like what was it? In about
6 years.
6 to 8 years, and that's with you buying a new car every year. So you could have 6 to 8 brand new cars. Well, that's brand new. You're driving them, obviously, but you know what I mean. So relatively the same. And then from the 80s to the 2000s, that's where we get a. I mean, it's still relatively the same ish. Like from you get 12,000 to 32,000, so almost 3 times. The housing went from 47 to 120, so that was over 3 times, but not too far off, admit. And the cars went from 16 to 18,000, so about 3 times. So the gap is getting wider, but it's still achievable, if that makes sense. Then we get from now, granted, 2000 to 2025, that's an extra 5 years, but whatever. Went from 30, though salaries went from 32,000 to 69,000. Nice. That's a little over 2 times. Housing went from 119,000 to over 400,000. That's 4 times increase. So your salary went up 2, your houses went up 4. Your cars went from 18,000 to 50,000. That is a 2.5 increase. So your wages have barely doubled. Everything else has at least, sorry, the cars doubled, houses quadrupled. Now, this segment's long enough. I could get into why I think everything's exploding. Well, everything's going up, wages aren't going up. But I've stated stuff on the previous episode. Zero interest rate policy, no down payment policy. But before we move on, there is one thing I want to note. I do have a note here that's interesting. According to my sources, since the late 1970s, so even like boomers born in the 60s are practically in the workforce, and boomers before them are like head of those workforces now. During the 70s, they're already like 30, going on 40. So they're
They don't like to tell you. Yeah, they don't like
so
to tell you this, but Mad Men isn't a period drama. It was a documentary.
yeah. So around this time, they're starting to at least become in charge of the I would say means of production kind of stuff. So my sources tell me that since the 1970s, worker production has steadily risen, meaning that you are working more, maybe not working more, but you're producing more, but hourly compensation has largely stagnated since the 70s, leading to a massive gap between the wealth created by workers and the wages they receive. I'm not gonna no, I'll diss on like I would say like 80% of boomers. I'll say that. So since the 70s, around the time they started getting in charge of these large companies, their wages are going up because they're getting more products sold. Workers are their wages are staying relatively the same. Houses are going up because zero interest rate policies, no down payment policies, and cars are going up because technology. So I'm not giving boomers a pass, but cars are still going up. But again, this section's long enough, and I think we've dumped on boomers quite a bit. Well, okay, I don't want to say boomer. We didn't dump on boomers. We dumped on power to the people who had the crazy idea that every generation worked more than 40 hours, and I and like maybe they worked more than 40 hours, but at least one person could work more than 40 hours, own a home, brand new car, feed their family, live comfortably,
Also,
1-2 vacations a year.
Also, it's not true. I don't remember where I saw it. It was some study. I'll Google it in a second, but I was pretty sure I saw a study that found that like your average worker in like from like 1940 to like 1980 something only did actually about 35 hours of work a week. Like there was like the 40-hour work week was only kind of a 40-hour work week with smoke breaks and all this other stuff. Like you are not working actually 40 hours. It was less than that, and it's only since post-internet. And this is, mind you, this is all when everything was physical and media was physical. When you used paper and pencils and pens and all this, work was so much less invasive of your life and your personal space. Work from home was great. Lots of people like work from home. If you are not great about your own boundaries, work from home is so unbelievably invasive. If you were in your car and you didn't have a car phone, your work was never getting a hold of you. You were in the car. You were driving. You were away from home. If people didn't know where you were,
Even
guess
then,
what? You were just gone. And you just Don Drapered it, and you showed up, on work on Monday, and they're like, "Hey, we tried to get a hold of you." It's like, "Oh, sorry, it's out for the weekend with my parents. Did I not tell so and so?" No, well, don't leave us like that again, man. It's like, "Oh yeah, no problem, dude." Like now, your boss has instant, constant access to you all of the time. They can send you work documents. If you have, they give you a laptop, they give you a phone. If you're lucky, maybe, or they might, if you're unlucky, they'll ask you to use yours. And now they can just send you work at any time. And on all of this, while it's not necessarily, well, you won't get, you can clock in for this, but I'm sure as a lot of people know, by enforcing the fact that you get paid for all of the work that you do, you will likely not keep a job for very long, right? Doing voluntary work does have a place in a workplace. I'm not fully against like you should never, take on extra roles. You should never blah 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 blah. I think there's a time and a place for it. But in the past, doing that stuff genuinely showed like initiative and all this other stuff because it was physical. Maybe people couldn't invade your personal life as much. Um, but now that your personal life can be instantly invaded by your boss, it went from you making an effort to do extra work to the boss now having the ability to make you do extra work for no pay because the barrier to access to you is so much lower. It used to be you had to really go out of your way to get your workers to go do additional things for you, so it just kind of wasn't worth your time. And anyone stepped up was like really making your life easier. Now it's a short text. Hey, I need you to come in on Monday. Hey, I got documents for you to review. Send. Dude, I'm at home. I'm at my pool, dude, or whatever. You don't own a pool. You're at your parents' pool if you're lucky,
Yeah. Or your
or the
apartment
public pool
people
if you're having a great time, right? Yeah, or outside of you're outside of someone's house who owns a pool,
Outside of a
behind the
boomer's
fence
home.
secretly. Um, yeah, I'm outside of your pool, dude. Like it went from it meant something for you to do it to now it's basically it's there's no really good comparison for it, but it's like the difference between um, you going out of your way to do something nice for someone else and someone making a demand of you, right? Doing extra work has gone from going out of your way to really show how invested you are to a new kind of like demand that can just be made of you. Maybe not at the risk of losing your job, but definitely at the risk of getting passed over for like management positions and whatnot. Like now it can be asked of you. Before asking it of you was a big ask. Now it's a small ask. We'll just review these documents. I just sent them over to you. Check
Yeah,
your email.
you're already at home.
Yeah, you're already at your computer. Just do
You
it.
have
It's
email
so
on your
simple,
phone.
right? Now it's like a death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah. So, again, this segment's long enough. So, uh, again, power to the people. I don't know who runs his account. You seem like a retired FDYNIFB MAGA. Yeah, that sounds about right. Um, so, based on the evidence we've seen today, yeah, I'd say that boomers did have it easier. The fact that Gen Z can't work more than 40 hours, and yeah, that's the thing. Gen Z will work more than 40 hours and still not have the home. But besides the point, I think we've made a great statement here. And on to our final segment. Still kind of involved with the whole like prices going up, people can't afford
Speaking
stuff.
of boomers ruining everything.
Yeah, speaking of boomers ruining everything, inflation soars at 3.3% in March. Prediction markets now see a 63% chance of it hitting 4% in 2026. Which, we still got like 9 months, like 8 months left, so anything can happen for sure. That's kind of a big bet. Well, investment. I want to. Okay, so March 2026 that just delivered the hottest inflation print in nearly 2 years, and prediction markets are already pricing a 63% chance that the inflation. Oh wait, hold on a second. No, I wanted. I forgot something I was gonna look up. California paper fire. Da-da-da. So I'm gonna. I don't want to bring up USA Today because they might play a video and I don't want a video. Uh, cool. All right, so I'm gonna close that. Okay, so before I continue, I wanted that up. All right. Nearly 2 years, and prediction markets are already pricing a 63% chance that exceeds 4% before the year is out for investors holding equities and fixed income. The next few months hinge on a single variable: whether the U.S.-Iran ceasefire holds. Blah blah. This morning's CPI report. Sorry, my boss looked at me. Energy drove everything. The consumer
See,
price.
see, see, see. They couldn't do that in the past. That's working. Having to read a message from that should count as work. That's work. You should have got paid like 15 cents for that right now.
For sure, yeah.
I'm not even.
I'll take it.
I'm not joking. I'm not joking. By the way, like this level of access is insane. It's so detrimental to people's work-life balance, which is something that people in the past. I'm sure we've all heard boomers be like, back in my day, we didn't care, but we didn't have a work-life balance. We just went to work and we didn't complain. It's like no. You don't. You don't understand this now because you're a manager and you're the one invading my work-life balance, or because you're retired, it doesn't matter to you anymore. But you could go home and not hear from your boss all day. You could go home on Friday and not have to worry about hearing from your boss unless there's an emergency and they called your home, until Monday morning. You got 72 hours, kind of probably closer to 48 hours of just freedom from your boss. No contact, no worries, all your paper done and checked. If there's an issue, it would be brought up on Monday. You could deal with it then. You had a work-life balance because the materials and the technology of the time permitted one to exist. There wasn't disability for your boss's email to pop up in your inbox when you got home, or over the weekend, or a text on your phone while you're trying to do something that you spiked your cortisol levels, right? It's unironically stressful, and it puts there is no work-life balance. It's work in the office and work at home, and trying to set those boundaries as a younger person, right? To be like, listen, hey, I don't read my emails at home. I read my emails at work because they're work emails. If they're urgent, you can give me a phone call. But I don't read work emails and I don't read work texts.
Yeah.
But when you put up these barriers now you run the risk of basically everyone else undercutting you for people who think they don't care as much about their work-life balance and are willing to destroy themselves like this. When in the past, that was much harder for someone to do because the technology literally was not capable of doing that to the same degree. There was landlines, right? If I was out driving around and I was like, hey, I'm just going to go for a drive. And I said, okay. My beautiful wife was like, all right, we'll see. Maybe I'd take her with me. Right? We go for a drive. And my boss calls my home. Guess who's not home? Guess who can't answer that call? Guess who's having ice cream and doesn't have to worry about work? Who doesn't have to worry about any of this stuff? That's what I mean when I say work-life balance.
Yeah, I get you.
You are working effectively. You might have a 40-hour week job, but if you're getting texts and emails at home and you're doing work on your home computer, that's work. Reading a text, that count however long that's work. Now, obviously, I understand that we can't do pay per time reading text or stuff like that. There's limitations around practicality. But additionally, man, it's so much harder to escape the world of work now. And you're effectively working so many more hours for effectively so much less pay. Unironically, your hourly pay you might be working let's say $71,000 a year is the average, 70,000, right? And let's say that's, over 40 weeks, so 52 weeks a year, you probably get a roughly cumulative week, 2 weeks, you get your 2 weeks of vacation, or you however long, 2 weeks of vacation. You however long a vacation you get, we'll say a week of vacation, or 2 weeks, that way we'll say a week of vacation, about a week of holidays, right?
Yeah.
So that way, there's 50 weeks in a year. Okay, so 70 divided by 50, what does that go?
Oh yeah. Oh, 50 divided by 70. Right. Sorry, I was about to take a drink.
No, you're good. We're looking at what's that, 1.2? Do I have that backwards?
Well, you said 50 divided by 70. Yeah, you have 5/7. So you're looking at, I don't know, 65%.
I'm a marketing guy. I'm not a finance guy. Okay.
I got you.
So it's 70 divided by 50. So whatever, that's your weekly paycheck.
Yeah, you're looking at 1.3, maybe 1.4.
Okay, so you've got so your weekly paycheck, you're making $1.3 thousand every week. So $1,300 every week. That's assuming you're working and that's for every 40 hours a week, you make $1,300. So, 1.4 divided by, or 1.3 divided by 4, that you're making roughly $30 an hour, a little bit more than, um, 35-ish, I think is the number. Um, but let's say we start including all of that time you spend reading emails at home. You spend, um, this is a bit of a soft metric, but like stuck in work brain because your boss is texting you, doing all this other stuff outside of work because it's invaded your life so much. You would probably take that number of hours worked up to like maybe 60 hours a week. Like it can really invade your time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so now you're not actually making $35 an hour. What you're actually making is closer to 20 something dollars an hour, right?
Yeah, because you're not getting paid for that.
Because you're
So
you're
it's
not
coming
getting
out of
paid
your
for any
pay.
additional.
Yeah.
So you're working more. You're actually making $20 an hour. So if you were making $20 an hour over the course of, right, you're working a $20 an hour job, you're just working 60-hour weeks, as opposed to a $35 an hour job working 40-hour weeks. This is why, 4-day work weeks are, so popular, is because the actual amount that you're working per day is more than the actual listed amount, right? You might only clock in for, a 40-hour week. Your actual working hours maybe are closer to 50 or 60. Um, and so, if you were to shrink that down to a 4-day work week, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or if you're a freak, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Um, or if you're an extra freak, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, take the Wednesday off. Um, Now you're actually looking at probably something, if you're working, okay, instead of 8 hours a day, it's 10 hours a day. That's over 40 days, that's 40 hours, right? Because that's how much it's invaded your life. Okay, yeah, no, I can see that. You're now back down to 40 hours a week, of 40 hours of actual work, effectively, as far as like compensation is concerned. But yeah, that's just what I was getting. It was like, we in the past, we worked and we didn't complain, and every generation forward, this soft generation of babies work more than 40 hours a week. You're right. My fault, Mr. Johnny Underwater Welder, working 920-hour weeks, and you haven't taken a day off since the World War, Napoleon. Um, my fault. But like for the vast majority of people, you were not actually working 40-hour weeks. And you had a physically built in via the limitations of technology work-life balance. Now, there is no work-life balance because your laptop and your phone are with you always. There is no, and this is assuming like white collar job, right? If you're making 70K, you're probably working a white collar job. Um, you're always on call, basically. Even if you're not on call, you're on call. So you're always on call. And you're always in doing small snippets of work here and there and here and there and here and there, and you don't get as many breaks. People are taking less and shorter breaks, or fewer and shorter breaks, um, and it just invades your life. So you're working probably at least a 50-hour week, and you don't have a work-life balance anymore because those additional 10 hours are sprinkled out at random parts of your evenings and afternoons. So there really isn't consistent long periods of rest time or away time from work. Um, yeah, like you're probably doing you're doing more work for less pay on a dollar that goes less far. But sure, Grandpa, my fault. I forgot to buy a house
When I was born.
10 years before I was born for 6 nickels and a raspberry, and then sell it for $3.9 million. I should have thought of that.
Should have, yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
sell my stock options that I bought at the beginning of one of the longest bull runs in all of economic history in the entire world. My fault.
Yeah, decisions. But
Decisions.
yeah, I gotcha. But we'll get back to this real quick. The consumer price index increase is seasonally adjusted 0.9% in March, pushed the annual inflation rate to 3.3%, the highest since April 2024, and up sharply from 2.4% in February. Both the monthly and annual figures came in line with the Dow Jones consensus, which is why markets are largely shrugging off CPI data today. As of noon, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 0.5%, while the S&P 500 is down 0.15%. The culprit for March's rise is what you expect: rising oil prices. Energy prices surged 10.9%, with gasoline surging 21.2% and accounting for nearly three-quarters of the headline price increase, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The Bureau of Labor Statistics. The Iran conflict, which began at the end of February, was the primary driver. Beneath the headlines was considerably calmer. Core CPI, blah blah. Food prices were unchanged for the past month and up 2.7% annually. Food at home fell 0.2%. Eggs fell 3% in March and have tumbled 44% over the past year. Airline fares jumped 2% for workers. The report carried a sting. Real earnings decreased 0.6% for the month. Average hourly earnings rose just blah blah blah. But really again 12 months, yeah. Okay, so we bring all that now. Inflation's going up. Like, I know they brought like the Dow Jones Industrial Averages barely changed. Yes, maybe barely changed. I do want to point out there is a difference between what the stock market's doing and what your wallet is doing. There might be a correlation in the long run between the two, but in general, just because the market's down doesn't mean you're down. Now, granted, we are down, but just because the market's unchanged doesn't mean that you're not getting changed. Now, I say that because I do sympathize with the dude. Well, not really the dude. Like his statements. So a couple days ago, there was a massive fire in. I guess I'll just click on MSN and risk the video. Yeah, don't play it. I can't even pause it. There we go. MSN. California fire wipes out toilet paper warehouse that served 50 million people. A raging fire believed to be arson wiped out 1.2 million square foot tissue paper paper warehouse in California. Now, I have to assume cause I saw a TikTok of a dude in a warehouse. He opened up the toilet paper and he put a lighter to it and caught them on fire. It could be a stunt. It could be AI. I am more and more fooled every day by AI. So for sure that could be it. But it did seem like this is what was. So he was setting the toilet paper on fire, and he had a few stacks of them in the warehouse on fire, and they cut to the warehouse fire. So could be AI. I will absolutely admit I didn't dive too far into it, but according to
the warehouse stuff, yeah, I think that's real. I'm pretty sure it was real.
oh no, the warehouse stuff, yeah. I don't know about the video that got posted. You know what I mean? It could have been like someone saw the fire. It's like, oh, I'll make a hey Grok, generate me an image of a dude setting toilet paper in a factory fire. You know what I mean? So I'm only like the toilet paper factory fire real. I'm just commenting on what the dude was saying, because he was saying in the video, according to him and everyone else in the comments who agreed with him, which was like 20,000 people commented, basically agreeing. I'm not saying they all agreed, but he basically said all you had to do was pay us enough to live, and because you don't, I'm going to do this. He said that over and over again. All you had to do was pay us enough to live, and like I sympathize with that. We've stated it before that prices are going up. You can't afford homes. You can't afford cars. Now, I sympathize. I do. That being said, this terrorism, which is what it is, this terrorism does not hurt the millionaires or the billionaires. This hurts the people who need to wipe their bums, because the same amount of people need to wipe their asses. Now there is less supply of that toilet paper to do so. So, basic economics. Demand stays the same, supply goes down. prices go up because now everybody wants that dwindling supply. Now, granted, I'm sure there's more toilet paper to go around. I'm just making an analogy here. Like, now, you might be saying, oh, well, now they have to, make all the toilet paper again. They have to rebuild the factory. Sure, but let's not pretend that that building wasn't covered by insurance. Now the company, whatever it was, just got a fat paycheck. And a fat paycheck for that. Not only that, because it was arson, not on their fault. They'll probably get an extra bonus on top of that. One, they're gonna get the money to build the factory. Two, they don't have to pay their employees for that time because there's no work to be done. All that money to building the factory is going to the construction people, so they don't worry about that. So they don't have to pay their employees, and they'll probably get a fat stack because it was a crime. So guess what? The rich people probably just got richer, if not stayed the same. And even if that wasn't the case, we talk about millionaires and billionaires, whatever. They can absorb this. Inflation's not a problem. Inflation's not a problem for rich people because they can absorb it. They don't care that housing prices are going up because in their mind, they'll buy the house, it'll go up anyways, then they can sell it later. They can absorb the cost. The average everyday people who can't buy homes, can't buy cars, they're going to struggle. Nah, probably not struggle. I mean, like, there's probably other
it's gonna hurt.
It's going to hurt them. And not only that, probably other toilet paper companies are probably going to have to pay more money to increase their security. So they pay more money to increase security. Guess who's going to be paying for that secretly? The people buying the toilet paper. Because so their prices are going to increase. So while I do sympathize with, like, all you had to do was pay us enough to leave, this helped the toilet paper company. This helped the toilet paper company, and this hurt the working. Okay, I say working. I'm assuming, I'm making the assumption that most millionaires have bidets, but I have to imagine, but
I'd be imagining it too.
But this hurts the people who need to buy the toilet paper, because now this is basic economics. I don't even need the notes to tell you this. Same amount of demand, low supply, price jacks up. So I want to get back
in the spirit of fairness, I will give it to the guy. They finally firebombed the Walmart.
Oh, I know,
it finally happened. If any of our listeners are unfamiliar, look up a firebomb Walmart tweet. And if the stuff from this doesn't show up, you should be able to see it. It's a text tweet, which basically goes something along the lines of, people on Twitter will say, "Oh, you believe in voting? That pales in comparison to my strategy of firebombing a Walmart," and then proceed to not firebomb a Walmart. But congratulations to this guy for actually getting around to firebombing a Walmart. They did it.
He's got cojones.
It was a dumb thing to do.
I'll give him that. He's got cojones.
Right?
It didn't go. I mean, it went the way he expected it. It's not hurting the people that's expecting it, but at least he did it. Most people don't follow their dreams. This guy does.
There's a certain level. There's a certain level of respect that you have to give to the real, like, saboteur. Like someone who went out of their way to mess stuff up for everyone. It was like, it took you some gumption to actually do that. Whether that's mental insanity or whatever, you actually did something.
Yeah, and
maybe a bad thing, but you did something.
No, I don't know. This is true. I didn't fact check it. I was driving home today, and my girlfriend brought it up that I guess they may have found the guy. So the video might have been real. I don't know. They found the guy, but apparently he doesn't even work for the factory. He just broke in, set it on fire, called it a day.
Incredible.
Again, I didn't look into it. So my thing is, like, maybe it's because I'm cultured. I'll give it that. Maybe I'm cultured. But if you really want to stick it to specifically the toilet paper companies, and you don't want to spend a lot of money, get a Tabo. It's in the Philippines. A Tabo is essentially a plastic cup that you use like a poor man's bidet. You just pour it down, and you can fill it up in the sink. You know what I mean? So if you really wanted to stick it to the toilet paper company, which my thing is like all you had to do was pay us enough to live. It's like out of all the people, it was the toilet paper man. Like at least once a day, the poop man is here and I owe him money. You know what I mean? Like this is hurting me.
No.
So I mean, like I don't know. Uh, Again, like we're an economics channel, so I have to talk about the economics of it. You know, inflation's going up, and we say up. It's not like crazy amounts, not like in the beginning of COVID, but it's enough to be like, let's see where this is going. I didn't bring up any articles recently, I guess. Um, so Iran put a toll on the Strait of Hormuz. So to counter that, the U.S. put a toll
Toll on
in
the
front
Strait
of
of
them
Hormuz.
on the Strait of Hormuz. So I don't know how that'll go. And then
If you
some.
don't take your guns out of my face, I will kill myself.
And then I guess the U.S. is now selling oil, which kind of goes to what I was speaking about a couple weeks ago. That like this was tinfoil hat moment. You know, they bombed the leader, like 30 leaders of Iran, destabilized their country when it comes to oil. We have an oil source in Venezuela. And I guess a bunch, this is recent reports. Haven't looked too far into it, but I guess a bunch of countries are sending their ships over to us to buy our oil. So, again, I haven't looked too far into it. I can't give you all the economics of it, but this kind of refers back to the tariff thing. Like, my problem with tariffs is that we didn't have anything to sell in the United States, so there was no competition. So there was no reason for the, you know, countries outside of the United States to absorb the tariff. So they would just put the price back on us. But here we go. We now have competition with the oil. So
Mhm.
now tinfoil hat, not a lot of research. Granted mine. We're now selling oil. Countries are coming to us. We've already put a toll on the Strait of Hormuz. Iran already put a toll on the Strait of Hormuz. So one of two things are going to happen. One, nothing changes. The tolls are there. We get money from tolls if they even decide to go through there. We get money from that, and we sell oil. Now, granted, that's generating money for the government, not for you. So keep that in mind. Or B, this is going to put a lot of pressure on Iran. They get their shit together, remove the toll. We remove our toll, which with the tariff thing Trump did, I don't even see that happening. But and then that opens up, so we have Strait of Hormuz getting oil, and people getting oil from the U.S. Things go back smoothly. I hope it's not. It's never smoothly. Adults are just like children. You put everybody in a room, and not everybody's gonna get along. But
What's that song? High school never ends.
yeah, essentially. Oh my god. But maybe we'll do a segment on Wednesday, Thursday. But yeah, we're gonna call it there. Thanks for listening. If you made it this far, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one.